Hey guys, so right now it's the middle of December, and this is just an update of what's growing in the garden right now. This is just a pretty small raised bed that we have going. I think it's 3 feet by 6 feet. First, we have the purple kohlrabi, which I actually got as a free seed. I've never eaten kohlrabi before, but it's basically the bulb that forms at the bottom. We have a lot of Tatsoi greens, which is sort of similar to bok choy, and this has actually been growing really well here. I made a bunch of plants. I started them in a smaller container and then transplanted them maybe like a month ago, and they were pretty small, but now they've grown really well, and I think I can harvest them as microgreens. We also have lots of little garlic shoots. I replanted scallions, this baby red Russian kale. It's sort of struggling, but I think it'll be okay. Meanwhile, this Lacinto or dinosaur kale is growing better. This is another really tiny red Russian kale. Moving on, we have a couple containers and a bigger raised bed. In the containers are watermelon radish, and those have been growing pretty well. I think they do like a lot of sun, and you can see the little radish bulbs forming, and they're doing pretty well. Next, we have radish that were in this taller container area, and they're not doing quite as well. It's hard to tell because they have about the same amount of foliage, but when you look, the radish bulb itself is much smaller. And then I also started 2 kales plants in the back here as well. Kale's supposed to grow for a pretty long time, so I'm hoping I can spread it around throughout the garden. Some more baby radishes. I tried like doing the succession sowing thing, but really I just sort of throw the seeds, and sometimes they germinate, sometimes they take a week, sometimes they take 2 weeks. It just really varies. So I got a couple watermelon radishes going on in different stages. Further in the back, in the shady part of the garden, we have a leftover tomato plant. This is leftover from the summer. I just didn't bother taking it down, and it looks like there's a couple tiny tomatoes there. So maybe I'll harvest that later. This is a loquat tree that it actually used to be where we planted tomatoes, and it fell down, the seed fell down from the tree above, and because we kept watering tomatoes, the plant grew. Looking more, I'm trying to root this fig tree. I don't know if this is gonna actually work out, but we'll see. Plucking off the weeds. Some more kale plants. So all these black pots are in the shade, and I can tell that the kale's growing a lot slower in the shade, but I don't have to water it as often. Meanwhile, the kohlrabi is doing really well, so honestly, I wasn't sure if I'd like it, and I only planted 2. This is some more radish. Although there's a lot of leaves, there's actually not a lot of bulbing going on. So you see sort of a thick stem, but it's really not growing as well. And I think that's just the lack of sun in this area. And so we'll see if anything forms. If not, you have radish greens. Here's some of the garlic I planted back in October. So this has been growing really well. I put some kale in between. Maybe it'll take over once I harvest the garlic greens. Those are some really skinny onions. And then here are some of the fruit trees we have. So we've had these like forever. This is the lemon tree. We get lemons like year round, and so it's always nice to grab a fresh lemon. This here is the guava tree. So these are green guavas, but we have so many that we're just leaving it on the tree, and they're turning a little bit red. So probably gotta eat that soon. I also make tea out of the guava leaves, and so that really works well. I think most of our trees back here are a lot of citrus and guava, which actually becomes harvestable in the end of the year in the colder months. And so we're pretty full up on fresh fruits for sure. So next we have, this is a green pomelo tree. It's also in its fruit stage, I guess. And so we have lots and lots of pomelos. They're looking great. They're sort of weighing down the tree. And then these are actually tangerines, but they're pretty big this year. I tried one. They're just as sour as they were last year. So don't know what's going on there. And then finally we have this last container plant. It's actually chocolate mint. We got this from our neighbor. Basically, they gave us a bunch of cuttings, and then I rooted some in the water and also tried to plant some directly. The ones that rooted in water actually did a lot better just because I'm not a very consistent watering type of person. And then there's a watermelon radish right in the middle. It's not doing well at all. And then here we have some lemongrass. Right now is not the best season for lemongrass, but it's growing. It'll probably make it through the winter and then do a little bit better in the spring when it's not as cold, but also still a wetter environment. Honestly, we haven't really had any rain at this point, and I doubt we'll have rain for the rest of 2020. But this is still harvestable. We pick up a couple stems. Same with the basil plant we have here. This one grew really tall and bushy and it tastes great. So we pick it whenever we need it, throw it into any type of dish, salads, savory dishes, and it works really well. So this is like a Thai variety. And then now for the seed starting. I have a couple pots going on trying to grow alpine strawberries. I tried 3 different mediums, so you could sort of tell how the coloring is a little bit different. So far, it seems like the coco coir alone, as compared to mixed with compost or mixed with sand, seems to be doing the best, and it looks like the seeds could be sprouting any day now. So I'm really excited for that. The seeds are really tiny, so they're just little tiny specks, but you can't see them sort of swelling up when they're about to germinate. Meanwhile, I picked up one of the other soil mediums I was trying out, and you can't even see the seeds anymore. I think they sort of, might have swelled up at some point and then probably just died. So, I mean, honestly, as long as I get a couple plants out of this, I'll be pretty happy. I mean, the bag of seeds is only a couple bucks, and buying a fully grown strawberry plant is probably, 10 to 20 bucks, depending on where you get it. And so we'll see if any of these grow. I think what I've learned the most is it requires a lot of patience, and that's the same with asparagus I'm trying to grow right here. Nothing's come out, so we'll see. And then I'm getting ready to start a bunch of other seeds, just because it's getting pretty warm here. And so now we're going to sort of end the vlog with the harvesting. So I just picked a bunch of the Tatsoi greens that you saw earlier. I'm using the cut and come again method. So basically you just sort of snip the outside leaves, and then theoretically the plant's going to keep growing towards the center and push outwards again. And then you can get a couple harvests out of the plant, and you don't have to wait until it's fully grown to eat any of it. So that's exciting. And this is pretty much what I got. So there's probably 6 or 7 plants, and it's only been a month and a half maybe of growing, maybe even less, and I'm excited to eat.